Well, Marvel Studios' potential biggest supervillain might be returning. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about ousted Marvel Entertainment Chairman Ike Perlmutter and his potential to return and bring down Kevin Feige and Bob Iger. This could potentially be a huge mess. Now, before we do that though, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. We do daily Marvel and DC videos, and we want to be your place for all the superhero news, but we're going to bring it to you truthfully and transparently so you are really in the know. Well, one thing movie fans generally aren't always aware of is the high level of behind-the-scenes management drama that goes on that we never ever see. And this does include studios like Disney and Marvel. Now, about a year ago, Nelson Peltz and his firm Train Partners decided that they were going to wage a sort of proxy war against Disney, which was laying out concerns that the studio needed to cut costs. Now, this spawned out of a decreased cash flow and profits in the wake of the worldwide pandemic, as well as the sort of slower returns on many Marvel projects. Now, luckily, Bob Iger returned to Disney, and this actually led to a surge in Disney stock prices, which ultimately made Peltz a happy man. Since then, Bob Iger has addressed a lot of concerns and made some serious cuts, including laying off thousands of people. He started the sale of several Disney assets that weren't aligned with the overall Disney program and ultimately saved the company about $7.5 billion. But a new story from The Hollywood Reporter seems to suggest that Peltz is back, and sadly, he's not alone. Now, last time he was seeking to take up one seat on the Disney board, and now, believe it or not, he wants 3. Now, to be fair, he has a $3 billion stake in Disney, and that's a pretty big deal. And after not being offered any seats by the studio, the company is taking its case to the shareholders. Now, currently on the Disney board, there are 12 members. And given the size of Disney and the selection process, quite honestly, it's no surprise that these aren't just being handed out. But then the trade dives in a little deeper, because it appears former Marvel Entertainment president Ike Perlmutter is involved in all of this. Now, if you remember correctly, he was fired as Marvel Entertainment chairman earlier this year, and since then, he actually pledged his shares in Disney to Peltz, which actually increases his stake by almost 80%. Now, Disney has gone so far as to acknowledge that Perlmutter had a, quote, personal agenda against management and specifically Iger, and that his interests may be different than that of all the other shareholders. And it appears at this point that Perlmutter took this personally and is out for revenge. Now, it's been a long-running understanding that Perlmutter was a huge problem when he was in charge over at Marvel. He allegedly pushed back against movies like Captain Marvel and Black Panther simply because he felt like people wouldn't buy toys depicting black and or female characters. Perlmutter also tried to fire Kevin Feige at a certain point. So, quite honestly, if he gets a foothold back in Disney, there could be major repercussions moving forward. Now, in the same report, they took a couple of quotes from an anonymous source, and they actually said that there is no silent partner in Ike, meaning he will have a lot to say, and even went as far as saying bringing him back is basically inviting Trump onto the board, and that he has proxied his vote to Nelson, making it very dangerous. Now, Ike Perlmutter classically keeps a pretty low profile, at least in the public eye, but he has gained some attention with his association with the previous president, and to be fair, some of his philanthropic endeavors. Outside of his political donations, he does give a lot to veterans' causes, so I think that's a good thing. But personally, I absolutely do not want him back at Marvel Studios. He is the kind of guy that chases creatives out the door, and to call him a penny pincher is an understatement. When he was there before, we got reports of him doing things like not allowing canned sodas to be available at premieres because they cost too much. That's how cheap this guy is. And although Marvel does need to step up their profitability, I think this would be an absolute disaster. Personally, I'm not a fan of Ike Perlmutter at all. I don't want him back in the building, but he does own a huge stake, and if he does team up with Nelson Peltz, well, honestly, that's how business works, and there might not be much fans can do about it. We're going to cover this story pretty closely because I think it could impact the future of Marvel and Disney massively, and if he gets back in, fans might have to start some sort of campaign to push back because I honestly do think it could ruin the MCU. But we're going to have to wait and see.